What happens when a movie is too perfect? Because while this might not sound like all that bad of a problem to have, it's one Pixar Animation has been facing for a while now. For decades, Pixar has been the undisputed king of animation, but now, the formula that led to their success is the same reason the company is at risk of being dethroned. Today, we'll be looking at the secret formula that makes Pixar films so great, why that is now hurting the company, and where the studio should go from here. I'm Dylan, and this is The Writer's Block. If you're like me, Pixar movies were a huge part of your childhood. They were well written, visually stunning, and heartwarming films. But more importantly, they were incredibly consistent. I'm talking banger after banger for a decade and a half. So what made those early Pixar projects so great? Well, it all comes down to story. Whether it's about toys come to life, the monsters in your closet, or the geniuses at Pixar managed to deliver powerful messages that are applicable to all ages, and they do so with three secret ingredients: a hero, a problem, and a new situation. Let's use Cars as an example. The hero is Lightning McQueen. He's an up-and-coming racer with a chance to win the Piston Cup, and he's focused on just one thing:
speed.
The problem is that he's obsessed with going fast and winning above all else. He's cocky and doesn't respect other people. He blows his tires and ends the opening race in a tie rather than a victory because he refuses to listen to his pit crew. The new situation is that Lightning goes missing and gets stuck in Radiator Springs. The small town is a slow-moving, close-knit community that confronts McQueen with all the joys he's been missing out on in life. When these three elements come together, we get a beautiful story that reminds us to slow down and take time to appreciate the world and people around us. There are more important things than winning. This same formula is used in WALL-E to make us care about the environment, and in Up to remind us to remain open to new connections. Pixar uses these same three elements over and over again because, put simply, it works. But if the formula always works, how come several of Pixar's most recent projects haven't? To be clear, I don't think any of these films are bad. They're just not magical in the same way that many of their early projects were, and I think I've figured out why. A film like Lightyear includes all three of the secret ingredients that I mentioned earlier, but they prioritize them in the wrong order. Buzz's problem is that he doesn't trust new people or recruits, and his new situation is that he's forced to team up with a bunch of ragtag rookies. But they're so focused on these elements that the hero, Buzz Lightyear himself, feels poorly defined. The movie tells us what his problem is, but we don't feel like it's a core part of his character, and we don't really care if he overcomes it. As a result, the message of the movie takes priority over the story itself, and the formula becomes too visible. Right away, we can easily see that his character arc will be about trusting others and learning to lead a team, making the film itself feel somewhat pedantic, rather than a story that anyone can relate to or enjoy. Now, I'm not saying that an obvious story arc is inherently bad, but the audience has to be made to care about that arc, and to do that, you have to prioritize character above all else. Learning about ourselves by watching other people is why human beings love stories. Robots fighting and big explosions will always be fun to watch, but unless we care about a film's characters, the story won't truly resonate. Looking at Finding Nemo, the character arcs are telegraphed heavily from the very beginning. Marlin is going to learn to let go and trust his son. Nemo is going to prove to himself and his dad that he's capable of doing great things on his own. It's not a complicated or subversive film. The formula is quite obviously on display, but the audience chooses not to notice it because we are so invested in the characters. And the reason we're invested is because we so deeply understand where Nemo and Marlin are coming from. Marlin's defining moment is when a barracuda attacks his family, leaving him and Nemo as the only survivors. After a moment that visceral, the audience can't help but understand the fiercely protective grip Marlin tries to maintain on Nemo. Conversely, the moment we see Nemo having to deal with his dad on the way to school, we feel just as smothered as he does, and root for him to gain some independence. These moments reveal what we call the core wounds of each character. Core wounds drive the character's actions through most of the film, and they're a great way of revealing to the viewer why a character acts the way that they do. These moments are so important because rather than telling the audience what the lesson of the story is, truly making the viewer care about your protagonists allows them to experience the growth and journey themselves. Even if your character doesn't have a core wound, we need a moment that succinctly endears the audience to them and shows us what makes the hero tick. Musicals will often do this with an I Want song, which lays out what the hero's goal in the story is and why we should care. Non-musicals don't have that luxury, but use what's known as save the cat moments to make the protagonist either intriguing or endearing. Many of the recent Disney movies, Pixar or otherwise, are guilty of forgetting these moments entirely. They might tell us, hey, this character saved a cat one time, please care about them, but unless we are shown them doing so, we won't. And this, fundamentally, is the Pixar problem. All three components of the formula can be present, but if we fundamentally aren't invested in the main character, we're not going to care about their journey, no matter how perfectly it's crafted. See, I think Pixar has become so reliant on and comfortable with their formula that they view it as a guarantee of success. They try to follow it so closely that there's often little room left for any spark of magic. This is why the best Pixar films to come out recently have also been some of the messiest in terms of thematic structure. Incredibles 2, Onward, and Soul all have the three secret ingredients, but they play around with them in interesting ways and don't make their main priority having a powerful message. It's within the cracks and imperfection that we find some of that classic Pixar magic. We are drawn into the story by the characters enough that we're not concerned with seeing perfectly concise character arcs or new situations systematically designed to explore the theme. Soul in particular ends rather ambiguously, which is super uncommon in Disney movies, but it doesn't actually hurt the film. The Pixar formula is just a tool to encourage better storytelling, and if a project can break that formula while still entertaining and affecting the audience, then that's wonderful. To reference Finding Nemo one final time, think of Pixar as Marlin. The more they focus on achieving perfection and holding on to their formula, the more likely it is that all the magic will slip through their fingers. But when they learn to let go and do something they've never done before, more likely than not, the magic will find its way back to them. I'm Dylan, and this has been The Writer's Block.